President Donald Trump signed orders on Saturday to impose sweeping tariffs on imports from Canada, Mexico, and China, escalating a trade war that threatens to reshape global supply chains and rattle financial markets. The measure includes a 25% tariff on most goods entering from Canada and Mexico, as well as a 10% tariff on Chinese products. While Trump has long argued that these levies are necessary to address trade imbalances and the flow of undocumented migrants and illegal drugs, the immediate backlash from some of the nation's largest trading partners, coupled with warnings from economists, underscores the risks for American consumers, companies, and the broader US economy. Before addressing Trump's warning to Canada in response to Canada's retaliation, let's first examine the measures taken by the Canadian government and provinces against the US tariffs. The White House's tariff orders take effect at 12:01 a.m. on Tuesday, giving little time for last-minute negotiations. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau swiftly announced reciprocal 25% tariffs on roughly 155 billion Canadian dollars, 106 billion USD, worth of US goods. Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum also pledged corresponding countermeasures, but did not immediately release a detailed list. China's Commerce Ministry vowed legal proceedings at the World Trade Organization and signaled it would respond in kind, though as of Sunday, it had not specified new tariffs. Trudeau, invoking Canada's long history of security and military cooperation with the US, condemned the move and urged Canadians to support local products and reconsider travel to American destinations. Meanwhile, Mexican officials rejected the Trump administration's assertion that Mexico has not done enough to prevent illicit drug flows, pointing to the importance of bilateral cooperation in addressing the fentanyl crisis. Both countries warned that if the tariffs persist for several months, their economies could face significant disruptions, risks mirrored in the US as well. In addition to the federal government's plans, Canadian provinces are also implementing additional measures. Ontario, Canada's most populous province and an economic powerhouse, has been particularly vocal in its response. Premier Doug Ford has instructed the Liquor Control Board of Ontario to immediately remove American-made alcoholic beverages from its shelves. This move is both symbolic and economically impactful, given that Ontario imports nearly $1 billion worth of American wine, beer, spirits, and seltzer annually. Ford has also hinted at further actions against US businesses operating in Ontario, potentially affecting trade agreements related to automobiles and technology. The provincial government is working closely with Canadian retailers and manufacturers to redirect supply chains toward domestic and European suppliers. Furthermore, Ford has called for a snap provincial election on February 27th, arguing that Ontario needs a stronger mandate to effectively respond to US economic aggression. British Columbia, known for its progressive policies, has taken a direct and politically charged approach. Premier David Eby announced that the BC Liquor Distribution Branch will immediately halt purchases of liquor from Republican-led US states, particularly those that have supported Trump's tariff policies. Additionally, British Columbia is exploring increased taxation on American tech and entertainment services, including streaming platforms, to encourage local alternatives. The province has also emphasized boosting local agricultural and seafood exports to Asian markets as a counterbalance to any economic strain caused by reduced US trade. Nova Scotia has taken a multifaceted approach to retaliation, focusing on infrastructure and commercial accessibility. Premier Tim Houston stated that the province will double highway tolls for US commercial vehicles, a measure aimed at discouraging American truckers from using Nova Scotia as a trade route. Additionally, the Nova Scotia Liquor Corporation will cease sales of all US alcoholic beverages by February 4th, further reinforcing the nationwide move to limit American imports. These measures are expected to generate additional provincial revenue while increasing costs for US businesses transporting goods through the region. Quebec has opted for a more systemic approach by reviewing all procurement contracts involving American suppliers with the intention of penalizing those that maintain ties to US government policies. Premier François Legault has indicated that Quebec may prioritize European and Asian suppliers in key sectors, including pharmaceuticals and construction. The provincial government has also launched an economic support package for local industries that might be affected by US tariffs, providing subsidies to companies willing to shift away from American raw materials. The Northwest Territories government has announced plans to review procurement policies aimed to eliminate purchases from US companies where possible. This move aligns with broader federal efforts to promote Canadian self-sufficiency, particularly in resource-dependent regions. Premier R.J. Simpson emphasized that economic resilience is crucial for remote areas that often rely on American goods for essential supplies. The territory is also exploring ways to strengthen trade ties with Indigenous businesses and Arctic nations, further diversifying its economic network. The federal and provincial nexus. These provincial measures complement the federal government's broader plan to impose 25% tariffs on $155 billion worth of US goods, set to take effect on February 4, 2025. The initial phase, covering $30 billion in imports, targets consumer products such as beverages, cosmetics, and paper goods. While provinces have taken independent actions tailored to their economic needs, they remain aligned with Ottawa's overarching strategy to pressure Washington into reconsidering its trade policies. This unfolding trade war is reshaping Canada's domestic and international economic policies, with long-term consequences for industries and consumers on both sides of the border, as provinces implement varied strategies, ranging from direct product bans to infrastructure-related costs. The overall impact on US-Canada trade relations remains uncertain, but is likely to be profound. Controversial social media posts in 2. Controversial social media posts published hours after Canada's retaliation, President Donald Trump aggressively criticized Canada's trade practices and revived the long-standing and widely dismissed notion of incorporating Canada as the 51st US state. These remarks come amid intensifying trade disputes between Washington and Ottawa, further aggravated by a new round of tariffs on North American imports. The proposals have provoked sharp condemnation from Canadian leaders, who view the statement as a provocative threat rather than a legitimate policy, highlighting a brewing crisis in cross-border relations. Trump stated, "Without this massive subsidy, Canada ceases to exist as a viable country." Harsh but true. Therefore, Canada should become our cherished 51st state, much lower taxes and far better military protection for the people of Canada, and no tariffs. In his first post, President Trump claimed that the United States pays hundreds of billions of dollars to subsidize Canada, suggesting that Washington receives little in return. He further asserted that the US has unlimited energy, could build its own cars, and has no real need for Canadian lumber, a sector that has been a source of ongoing trade disputes. Concluding that Canada would cease to exist without American subsidies, Trump portrayed statehood as a beneficial path for Canadians, promising lower taxes, robust military defense, and no tariffs. The rhetoric struck a nerve across Canadian political circles. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau swiftly rejected the idea, calling it unfounded, inflammatory, and disrespectful to the long-standing alliance between the two nations. The Canadian public has also been widely critical, with many commentators framing Trump's remarks as a show of brinkmanship aimed at extracting trade concessions, escalating trade conflict. The new trade orders include a clause allowing the United States to increase tariffs if affected countries respond with their own tariffs or other retaliatory measures. The inclusion of this clause suggests the administration's intent to discourage countermeasures and prevent an escalation of trade tensions. However, the retaliatory tariffs announced by Canada and Mexico indicate that these nations are prepared to defend their economic interests, potentially leading to further escalation. Economists warn that these escalating trade tensions could result in higher consumer prices, disrupted supply chains, and potential economic slowdowns in the involved countries. The situation remains fluid, with the possibility of further retaliatory measures contributing to an intensifying trade conflict. In a follow-up post, Trump criticized what he termed the tariff lobby, accusing the Wall Street Journal and other globalist entities of protecting countries such as Canada, Mexico, and China. Reiterating his stance, the president accused these nations of exploiting the United States for decades through unfavorable trade deficits, lack of crime prevention, and unchecked flows of dangerous drugs. Urging manufacturers to move production to the US to avoid tariffs, Trump invoked a vision of an American economic golden age, conceding that some short-term pain might be necessary to achieve long-term gains. Both statements align with Trump's newly signed executive orders imposing a 25% tariff on most goods from Canada and Mexico and a 10% tariff on Chinese imports. The move has triggered immediate countermeasures from all three nations, further escalating the trade conflict.